Hey guys, before the show starts, I wanted to give you a heads up that there was an issue with the sound coming in from Max's mic, especially at the beginning of the conversation, but we had such a great conversation, so please bear with me through the sound issue because we had some real tennis pro talk that you won't want to miss. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Vida Tennis, the podcast for those of us who eat, sleep, breathe tennis. My name is Jennifer Gelhaus, and I'm your host. Today, I'm excited to talk with Max LePivert. He is the director of Racquets at the Boathouse and Field Club on Martha's Vineyard. Max has been directing programs for many years at clubs like the Siwanoy Country Club in Bronxville, New York, Aspetuck Valley Country Club in Westport, Connecticut, and the Stanwich Club in Greenwich, Connecticut. Max has also taught at some amazing clubs like the Breakers in Palm Beach, the Jupiter Island Club, and the Westmoor Club in Nantucket. He's a professional platform tennis player with dozens of titles, and he has held a ranking as high as number 3 in the country. Max is also the owner of L'Académie Elite paddle camps. He's from France, and he came to the U.S. at age 15 to play professional tennis. He played for the University of Miami here in Florida. Welcome, Max. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Thank you. Did I get all your background info right?
Yeah, I think you did.
Okay.
Right on the point.
You have a lot of experience, especially directing, which is surprising because you're a young guy. So that's awesome. But you came to the U.S. at such a young age. How was that experience for you? And was that a huge culture shock?
Yeah, massive culture shock. But I loved it. I was such a big fan of the U.S., the development programs and the opportunities to play pro and play college tennis. We don't have those same opportunities back home. You know, it's kind of like once you turn 18 in France, you're either going to college or starting a profession, or you have to turn pro. There's not really, you can maybe play club tennis, which is kind of popular, but doesn't pay a whole lot of money. So you can't really make a living off of that. So there are not many options. And I was kind of faced at that age. I'd been to the U.S. once or twice to train. And I really loved the fact that as a backup, I could end up, in college, or I could do college and potentially turn pro and kind of follow my dream of playing professional tennis. So it was a no-brainer in my parents' mind, in my mind, to come up here.
Awesome. And how did you decide that you wanted a career in the tennis industry? How did that come about?
I've loved, sharing my passion for the sport from such an early age. I started teaching, which is crazy. I started teaching as a way of making money to support my tour aspirations. I started teaching at 17 at the Breakers. I was kind of a hitting pro. Started, not really knowing much about teaching, but started hitting with clients, with members from an early age. And I love the idea of being able to share something and see people's faces just light up when you share something that makes sense. I love the service industry. So I love making people happy. And I just, from an early age, I kind of knew that maybe I would even end up in teaching tennis down the road, even if I didn't follow a business, my business background and whatnot. So that was always in the back of my head.
Is that what you studied? Did you study business in school?
Yeah, I did international business, but really didn't really have anything specific in mind when I got out, and didn't have any connections, and unfortunately when I got out, I was looking for potentially a regular business job in the business field, but you're starting at like a complete low bottom of the totem pole, making coffee, or starting without much, and I really wasn't looking forward to that. And I had opportunities to teach at a pretty good rate and at some of these really nice clubs. So that for me, that was kind of a no-brainer to quickly leave the business industry and get into tennis.
Was that your first teaching job? That's a great first job if that's the case.
Yeah, I got super lucky. I was looking to make money in the summers as a way of supplementing my, my traveling for tour tournaments and things like that. And I had a friend that worked at the Breakers just as a regular attendant in the tennis shop, and that's kind of how I got connected to the director and started teaching the academy kids in the afternoons and doing all the camp stuff. So I was really like a basic hitting pro and junior pro in the beginning, but still at 17, I think I was teaching, which is insane. I was teaching I would come back during the holidays, and we were really busy during spring breaks. And so they always needed help. So at 17, I think I was teaching already at $150. I wasn't making $150 an hour, but my lesson rate was already $150, that was the lowest rate for the lowest pro there, which is insane. And this was back in 1999 or 2000, like early 2000, which is crazy.
I wonder how much a lesson is there now.
Well, so I think at the time, Kathy Rinaldi was kind of the touring. They always get a touring pro there. At least at the time, there was Kathy Rinaldi was like top three in the world for many years. She's a Fed Cup captain. I think she was charging at the time like I think $250 an hour.
You don't usually hear of that kind of pricing, at least not in Florida. In the Northeast, certainly, but in Florida, that's pretty much unheard of. So
I mean,
it depends on the club, right? I mean, you're a fantastic club. Yeah.
It also runs a bit like a resort. It's kind of a half members and a half just guests, so they can command those rates because it's it's a fancy place to go stay at. So a lot of the people that are coming here are just guests, so they're not really paying attention to what they're paying. People are getting charged quite a bit, but they command those rates and they have really good pros.
Yeah. And so how did you get into platform tennis?
So I was in Florida working in Palm Beach and kind of got tired of doing the whole year round. After I left college, I was doing a little bit of the year round around that area in Palm Beach and Jupiter Island a bit as well. But as nice as the winters were, for me there were too short, meaning there's so many days where you're teaching 8-9 hour days in 90-degree weather, in October and November, even in December, there's some really hot days. And it's just, I needed a change of scenery where I could do, I wanted kind of 4 seasons. It was a little too much of the same. And it's not easy to teach in Florida year round. It's so hot in the summers, and the winter, I think for me is like January, February, maybe, where the temperatures are really mild and really nice. The rest of the time it's still really hot. So when you're doing, as you're aging, when you're doing like 7 to 9 hours a day in 85-degree weather, that takes a toll on you.
Absolutely.
I contacted some friends that I knew were working private clubs up here and got connected to come work the winter here in an indoor place called Racquets Club, which is one of the premier indoor places here in Rye, New York. And that's how I started. And then quickly thereafter found a year-round job. At the time, I was still doing Nantucket in the summers. So I would do Nantucket and then back to Rye in the winter. But decided that I wasn't getting enough looks for director's job. On Nantucket Island, as good as the job is on your resume, you're not connected to the big director's job down in Fairfield County, which is like Greenwich, Westport, all these fancy places, Westchester County. Yeah. And so decided to make the decision to take less money and take an assistant pro job at a high-end club.
Yeah. Okay. That was a smart thing.
It was a really smart thing. It was difficult because I was giving in at the time, which was a lot. I think I probably made like $20,000 less than doing the Palm Beach or Nantucket/Rye, where you could make more money with both jobs. I took probably a $20,000 cut.
Wow.
Which was big, it's a lot of money for an assistant pro. But the opportunity to work at a really high-end club, like it was a really good club on resume. It's actually the Stanwich Club, which I became a director later on. And get the experience and have that big name, it kind of gets you in the door for these big interviews.
So once you started teaching up there year round, then that's when you started playing platform tennis, and now you're running camps and doing the whole thing. How easy was that transition for you? I mean, I'm guessing it's pretty easy coming from tennis, but if you can speak on that.
Yeah, so, platform tennis is really like a Northeast sport. Like you don't really see it in many places. It's kind of a niche sport that's only played at the country club level. One, because the courts are really expensive to put in. A court is about $120K because it sits on the platform. And I did it in the winter as a way to, number one, to expand my teaching, my resume, and to becoming a paddle pro. You don't really have a choice if you want to have some good jobs in that area. And also as a way of passing time on the weekends to play tournaments. And we had such a good friends that were playing. And the transition is not that hard. It's probably to become a top level paddle pro at the time. You're probably at a 2-year transition where you're trying to learn the game. The game is very different than tennis, but if you have racket skills, it's a huge advantage.
Yeah.
But it took me about 2 years to get from a complete beginner to get to like a top 20 player. And now that transition is much harder to make because the game's got way more depth. So now it probably takes you a couple of years to get to that top 20 because it's not that easy. There's so many good players.
And how are your paddle camps? I'm guessing those are in the winter as well. How long have you been running those, and where do you do them? What makes them special?
Yeah, so I just started the academy. I've been teaching paddle camps for many years, some of my own and some for other people. It's usually destination camps. People we do them on Nantucket, do some on the Vineyard this year. And the idea is that, people pre-season, before their season starts, members will come up, and it's a perfect way to go spend 3 days on Nantucket, have a good time, have great restaurants, and then take some instruction. It's a 10-hour, 3-day course. So people take 2.5 the first day, 5 hours the next day, and 2.5 the next day. So it's a 10-hour course over 3 days where we bring the top teaching instructors in the country to instruct and give them a sort of a warm up to their season. Season starts mid-October, so these camps usually take place in September and early October.
Okay. So do you think that the people that are playing platform, do they stop playing tennis in the winter and dedicate a platform, or are they kind of still playing indoor tennis and platform?
It's a little bit of both. It really varies. Some people are hooked on paddle or platform tennis, so they'll play only that. But a lot of clubs have made the right move here in this area to put bubbles up rather than not having that there. Everybody's trying to put bubbles up to offer more amenities to membership. Mm-hmm. So now I'd say the majority of the clubs, people are playing both. They'll play once or twice tennis and tennis and paddle once a week or twice a week. They're very affluent. There's a lot of money here, so a lot of the members are not scared to spend money to have it before.
Yeah, and it's funny that not that you corrected me, but you kind of said platform, paddle, because I know people call it paddle, but I find it so confusing because you have padel, and then I played another version of it out in California it was written like paddle, but I think maybe they call it padel, but it wasn't padel. So I think like there are so many different names, and I think it needs to be cleaned up a little bit because there's so many things that sound the same. And I don't know, to me, it's like, I was going to call it platform tennis because I almost have issue, like, differentiating between paddle and padel. Sometimes they sound the same to me, and I'm like, wait, which one is he talking about?
I completely agree. But the official name is platform tennis. We call it paddle here because there's been nothing else that's rivaled it. Right. But now, with the emergence of padel, I think we need to make the distinction for sure.
What do you think is the most common mistake that paddle players make?
So you mean that platform tennis players make?
Yes, platform.
As in the most common error. I mean, it's a game of errors. It's not a game of winners. Yeah. So it's probably from a tennis player's background. When you come in as a tennis player, you look to be super offensive. In tennis, usually whoever's most offensive tends to win the point. Whoever's willing to dictate play. It's not necessarily the case in platform tennis because the dimensions of the court are so much smaller. Yeah. And you have chicken wire behind you to bring the ball back into play, so you can play the ball off the wires. And so the most common error is, to sound silly, but it's an unforced error. People lack patience, and you have to have way more patience.
And what about for tennis? What would you say is the most common mistake you see in the people that you're teaching?
Oh, and the people that we teach, it's probably strategy. I think, decision making at the country club level. It's typically, it's some of it is skill set, but for the most part, it's poor decision making on shot selection.
It's interesting. I haven't played platform, but I've played padel here in Florida, and it was really fun. And from what I can remember, it was exactly what you said. I feel like I was trying to end the point. There's such an emphasis on trying to end the point, but really, you do have to be a lot more patient. And what really I found really difficult was hitting off the walls because I'm just not used to that.
Yeah, so the ball comes off really hot.
Yeah, and you have to back away from it, and that whole concept blew my mind. But eventually, you get it, and it's so fun. But what skills would you say in general have helped you advance the most in your career? Saying maybe it's your playing skills because you were such a good player, or your management skills, your people skills, your teaching skills. What would you say has advanced you the most in your career?
So I'm in a very niche business. I've really, most of my career has been teaching at really high-end, prestigious places. And so to me, it's all about the energy and I would say organization. So to be successful in the particular field that I'm in, it's about having really good energy on court so you can create a really good rapport with members. And off the court, it's really about being super organized. What we do off the court as directors is not super hard, but what makes our job, in my opinion, really difficult is that you have to do it with the same quality day in and day out. So yeah, anybody can step up into my role and do it for a week, but can you do it for 365 days every day? And that's the challenge as a director in this market and in the really affluent clubs, is it doesn't take much to make a mistake and for people to be really upset. You have so little room for error, depending on the types of memberships, where people are used to being treated, amazingly well, and they're expecting the best service. So by far, organization off the court as an admin person is super important. Mm-hmm. And on court, it's less about teaching. It's important to know how to teach and how to teach certain types of people. But the thing that most people look for is they're looking to have fun. Especially when you're at a club, a year-round club, like, people don't come and, yeah, they're interested in learning and getting better, but the primary skill set that a pro needs is to be able to recognize what makes somebody have a good time on the court. And you have to have incredible energy, day in and day out to really get that out of members. If you come off the court, you could be the best teacher in America. If you come on the court and you don't have a lot of energy, the people are not really having fun, you're going to have very poor results, at least in the market that I'm in. Because people, I would say, like, at the end of the lesson, our number one goal is make sure someone's had fun. And as a secondary goal, we hope that they learned a lot from the lesson. But the number one thing is to make sure they come off and happy and wanting to have that experience again.
Yeah. You have to be personable too. You have to have a personality, I feel like, and you have to be nice. I think if you're trying to be a drill surgeon, it's not going to work out very well.
Yeah, not in this particular type of, in that environment, the high-end country club environment. Yeah, that's the wrong way to go. That's more your academy, kind of high-level juniors, or people that are coming in for a 4.5 camp and really want to get the most out of the instruction. But that to be a director, that's probably not the way to succeed. You won't last very long. And similarly, what's hard about our job with high energy is, like, a good pro will have good energy for the first 3-4 hours, and then we'll temper off in the afternoon and maybe not teach as well. And a great pro or someone that's been in this business and that does it really well will have the same energy from 8 a.m. on to the last lesson at 5 or 6 p.m. And that's hard to find.
Yeah, I feel like something that helps me with that is the fact that it's different people. I don't know that I could do like the same group for that long every day. At least with us, it's like you hit a reset button because it's a different person that you're interacting with. So if you get sick of them, at least you only deal with them for an hour. And if you love them, great. Most of the times you do love them, but you get that kind of refresh button every hour and a half. So that's at least what gets me through.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And also certainly think in our business, there's not enough. One of the things that I don't like about our business is either you work like a dog or you don't work at all. It's, in this type of business, you and I have talked about this offline a bit, but I'm on the same boat as you in that regards. I'm not a big fan of pushing my pros to 40 plus hours every week, especially if they're planning on continuing on in this business and becoming directors or seeking a career in the business. It's a difficult job to do with the right amount of energy. I really I try to keep my pros between 35 and 40 hours at the most. And unfortunately, that's not always the case. When we get busy, you're going to have to be doing more hours than that, but it's not ideal. And I wouldn't want that for many stretches at a time. We also have in at least when I was at the Stanwich Club or these clubs, year-round clubs, we also work 6 days a week, and it's insane. It's not right in a lot of ways, but that's kind of the way the jobs are set up. And, in my previous job, I try to set up everybody for at least 2 days a week because you have to maintain a sane life. You have to be happy and have the time to do more than just want to sleep all day on your day off, because that's the only day that you have to recuperate. So,
yes. Oh my gosh. Sorry to interrupt you. You just got me thinking about a conversation I was having the other day with Rich Nair. He has a huge newsletter that comes out about the tennis industry. But he was saying that the main problem that he sees in the tennis profession right now is burnout. Yeah. And it's so apparent because that's exactly how our pay structure is designed for burnout, because we get paid most of the times. I mean, unless you're in a leadership role, like director or head pro or something like that, you're getting paid by the hour. And if you're not teaching, you're not making money. So, and if you get paid really well, it really motivates you to work more. So it's kind of hard to say no to money when it's just like right there for the taking. It's so easy to burn yourself out taking 8+ hours daily and not taking any days off. I don't know how some pros do that. I can't do it. And it's designed to be like that. And I feel like that's something that probably needs to change in our industry.
Yeah, there's a couple big loopholes that have been hurting our business. And number one, there's a massive difference between an assistant pro total income versus a director's total income. So it's almost like you have to burn yourself out completely to become a director. But by the time you become a director, things don't get easier. They get tougher. You have more things to manage. And so it's not like you're going to get to recuperate. So if you spend all your energy trying to become a director, it's not like your life gets easier, then it only gets harder. So I think the clubs need to be better at understanding that it's in their best interest to offer salaries even to their assistant pros to help them, make a little bit of money, number one, running little things here and there, starting to get some admin experience, but without making them feel like they have to earn all their money by teaching on court. And it's hard to find that, like you said, past the director and the head pro, usually your next assistant doesn't really make a salary. He has to make, or she has to make all of her money on the court. And that leads to burnouts if you're looking to make a lot of money. So I think that's a really big problem in our industry. And it's also, I feel like management has made some mistakes, club management has made some mistakes and not making the jobs appealing, by making you feel like you have to work so hard so that the pro eventually says, you know what, I really can't do this anymore, and just ends up picking another job or ends up trying to find a place that will give him a better deal. Mm-hmm. To me, it's mind-blowing that people clubs try to hire and don't put their best foot forward in making sure they're giving you the best possible life. It doesn't have to be financial, but, like more vacation time, or it should be in their best interest to make you happy. So you give them a 20-year career rather than thinking, as soon as I can find a better job with a better deal, I'm leaving. And that's what's happening in our industry, at least in the niche market, like country clubs. That's what's happening. People are, it's like musical chairs, because if the clubs are not treating you right, the pro is going to get their experience and then they're going to look for the next best thing.
Yes. And it's also a different generation that is entering the workforce on the tennis industry right now, where I think that's going to be valued more, is having some kind of stability. I think there's a lot of older pros that, for whatever reason, they were okay with it. And it worked for them, I guess, to work on an hourly basis. And a lot of pros go into their 50s, 60s, mid 60s, all the way up to retirement, even working that way. That's not really sustainable in today's economy and everything that we have going on today. So if the tennis profession wants to advance, I think that there's some changes that need to happen. If you want to attract good talent to the tennis profession, I think those things need to be reevaluated for sure.
Yeah, I totally agree. The other thing that's difficult is a lot of us, I mean, I'm not one of those because I wanted to be in the tennis industry, but a lot of us, a lot of the pros ended up teaching as a second option, not as their main option. It's kind of like, well, I can make this kind of money and I'm not willing to stay in my field of study because it takes too long to get to a place where I can make a similar amount of money. So what's difficult is you can make a lot of money as a younger pro in the beginning because it's a lot for being 21 years old. You get thrown more money than you would make working in a different field.
Yeah.
And so a lot of pros end up picking that because they think, but then you can plateau really quickly if you don't work for the right program or the right pro or the right place. It's easy to get plateaued. And I agree with you. Something needs to change in the industry to make it more of a lifestyle kind of job versus more like I'm going to burn out, make as much money as I can, and then potentially look for something else.
And that's why, I think I kind of started this podcast too. We were talking about this a little bit offline, is why I started this podcast was to create this environment where pros can talk about whatever's going on in the tennis industry. Money is a big aspect of it. But you were saying that at least in your area, you guys kind of meet, or you have a group of pros that meet, and you guys talk about what kind of money you should be charging for lessons, and you kind of work together with those things. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest things in these directors' jobs is that pros, it's a little bit of, for a while, it's very competitive. So everyone for a long time has been looking to do, take the cheaper job, or, take a lesser job to beat the other guy or the other girl that's going for the gig. So everyone's like selling themselves short. And that's because the pros haven't been working together. I can guarantee you that, and I know that for a fact, that all GMs in Fairfield County and Westchester County know exactly what we're making, what each club is making, what each club is paying, what each general manager is making. And that allows them to, to come up with contracts and things like that are not always in our best interest. And in our area, we haven't done a great job. We're doing better now, but we haven't done a great job of getting together and discussing, hey, as a director, what's your salary here? What are you charging? Is the club taking anything from you? Are you W-2'd? Are you 1099'd? But we now have this great group of pros. We're all in a WhatsApp group. And we've kind of, over the last couple of years, we're sharing all the info of what we're making, so that you can have comparable, if you have a comparable setup as someone else, you can compare what they're making versus what you're making. And that can help you negotiate better for your next contract, or that can at least make you understand your worth to the club and what's being offered out there. So you can always reevaluate your options and know whether you have a good deal or whether you don't have such a good deal.
Yeah. I think that this is kind of where the teaching associations should be stepping in and helping more, is in guiding the pros through this process. Because to me, it should be pretty standard. Say, if you have a club with X number of members and they charge X amount of money for membership, like, you, based on that, you already know, okay, how much should they be paying their tennis director, and how big of a facility that you're running, right? I think just based on those things, it should be kind of standard in the industry, and then, bonuses or whatever, but there's no such thing. And the water is very muddied when it comes to having even an idea of what anybody's making in the tennis industry, because the ones that are making a lot of money, they don't want you to know that they're making a lot of money.
Of course.
And the ones that are not making a lot of money are making it seem like they're making more money.
Yeah. You're 100% right. And I agree that the associations need to do a lot better in formulating contracts, or in at least giving you baselines of different types of clubs and what should be expected there. So when you go into negotiations with a club, you're already somewhat protected with what a salary should be worth there, what your hourly should be, and things like that. It's like such, you'd be surprised, even in our area, within 10 miles, you have guys making double the salary, and some are making way more on hourly rate, some are making way less, and it's all over the map, and it really shouldn't be. And that's how pros get taken advantage of. And that's also how, when you're a head pro looking to become a director, because the title is so important, and we talked about this earlier, because there's such a big difference between what a head pro makes versus what a director makes, at least in these affluent clubs. Yeah. When a head pro earns a director's job, they'll literally take anything, because anything's going to be better than what they're making. But they're willing to give to the club back 25%, 20% of the lesson rate or the total income, just because they need to earn their director's title, which will then help them move on to a better club. So it's like this vicious cycle where, assistant pros or head pros are taking these jobs, but taking them at any price.
Yeah.
Because they need this title to help them get a better job down the road. And it's completely wrong. And the club loses out. That club that's taking money away from them is losing out, because in 3 years, that pro is going to get another job and you'll lose them, and you're back to scratch. But that's why you see a lot of, at least, again, I know of this area well. I don't know much about the other markets, but I know obviously the Northeast super well. And that's all these jobs are. We call it musical chair, because you'll see like a pro is fairly dissatisfied with what she's making or he's making. And next thing you know, 3 years later, he's taking or she's taking a better job, because the pay is much better and they're treating the person much better. And so now this old club that they were at completely loses out on an amazing person that was doing great for their program, and now they have to start back from scratch. So it's just interesting that we're so far off, and you're so far off on states too. I know in Chicago, their salaries are really high and their hourlies are much lower. There's a really big spectrum of what a director makes in this area.
Yeah, for sure. And I've heard that also, and I'm not too familiar with academies and all that. But I've heard, at least when people talk about, that in some of these big name academies, they'll pay pros $10 an hour, and people just take those jobs kind of just to have it on their resume, like, hey, I worked at this academy, this really big name, right? And yeah, it's just kind of a shame that people kind of lower themselves to that, because if you should know your worth. Yeah, go ahead.
No, you're so right. And here we have a lot of indoor places, and that's what they do. They'll pay you, they'll pay you like really low rates, but they'll give you like 55 hours a week. So you end up making the same amount of money, but you're working twice as hard as you normally would be if you were paid what you were worth. And that's how those places make their money. The country club level is a little bit different. Country club level, you're going to make a decent amount of money as a pro, but those jobs are harder to get, and you have to have, I would think, a better skill set to become a country club pro, because you have to have a lot more things in your bag, in your tool bag, to be considered for a position.
Yes.
As we were talking about earlier, whereas say an academy pro, if they're an amazing tennis player and if they coach at a really high level, that's all you need. You can be tougher on people. You don't need to, like you said earlier, you don't need to understand, the relationship that you have with the person across from you. In my opinion, and I'm a little biased, the country club teaching at the high level, the prestigious clubs, is probably the hardest one, because people are expecting such high quality and such big things from you all the time.
So let's talk about that. Actually, you can get in some sticky situations sometimes at clubs, because sometimes members can be tough, and even though most of the times they're wonderful, even if it's just one member who is quite rude or says something that it's just so off, how do you handle that? Or how would you recommend somebody to handle a situation where you just have someone that's just completely off and just comes at you with something that you're like, what the heck? I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. Like, how do you handle that?
Yeah, so you have to keep your cool. It's you have to distinguish whether that person's mad at you because you're not doing your job correctly, or maybe they're not satisfied, or you have to figure out whether they're just having a bad day, which happens to everybody. And so you got to, in this business, you got to be super level headed. You can't take anything personally, as difficult as that may be. Even if it feels directed at you, you have to be able to just in one ear out the other, and just try to make the lesson enjoyable and do the best you can to manage that person's behavior. It is very tough, because sometimes their members can be really tough, and sometimes they come in, you've done nothing wrong, but they're just having a bad day, and sometimes that one member that's really difficult is just going to take it out on you just because. So it's very challenging, but the best advice I can give is don't take it personally. It's gonna happen. It's gonna happen to the best of us. You can have a pro that's been the most respected director in the area, and that's still going to happen. And just try to find things to try to find ways to make the lesson fun, and just kind of get their minds off what they were thinking. But it's not easy, and it's not easy to not take it personally.
Yeah, I think that's key. Absolutely, is to not take it personally, because most of the times it has nothing to do with you. A lot of times it can even be something that's out of your control, but you're the one that's getting the brunt of it. So yeah, it can be very difficult. And you're right, you have to be so level-headed. And sometimes you might be tired from being on court, but you still have to carry yourself in such a professional way. And I think that's really what separates like the really good directors at these amazing clubs from maybe a director at a public facility or at a different type of place, is that they are just so good at handling those situations and at handling people and at staying calm. I mean, in the Hamptons, my boss, he was like the best at that. I was like, wow, I want to be like you when I grow up.
Yeah, I mean, you're so right, and it's difficult to do, but being diplomatic in this business is the best way to go. You can't pick sides, and you certainly can't lose your cool. People won't forget that. And so I completely agree with you. It's just and as you get into more of those situations, and it happens more throughout your career, because it'll happen, you start handling it better and better and better, and hopefully it doesn't happen as often as it does sometimes. But I completely agree. But it's just, for me, it's it's about not taking it personally and just move forward and try to make the best out of the situation.
Yeah. And here, I always say, hear them out, then kind of maybe look into it and follow up. I mean, that's, like the basic three things that you can do, right?
Yeah.
But some of these things come more naturally for some people than others. Some things do come naturally to just from having a tennis background and being around coaches and just growing up in the sport. But is there any particular skills that you would say you have had to work on consistently throughout your career that maybe that you're still working on now? Or do you feel like it's all pretty natural to you?
I mean, now it feels pretty much like second nature because despite my 39 young years, I've been doing this since I was 17. So I've been doing it for enough years that I've got the hang of it. But yeah, I mean, it's, to me, it's to be successful, it's about creating a rapport with members so that they don't see you as an employee, but they see you as someone that can help them have a great time and have fun on the court. Once you have that level of respect, and it takes a while. Once you create that level of respect with membership, you don't deal with nearly as many issues as you would when they're getting to know you, when they don't know you well enough. Especially as you get older, you typically get a lot more respect from people because they know you've been doing it for a long time. The way I like to call it, it's like, in the mafia, how you have to get made, before you become family, or it's kind of the same thing. I know it's a funny analogy, but it's not so far off in the sense that when you go work at a club and people don't know you, you kind of have to get made before they give you their trust and their fun and their easy behaviors. In the beginning, they're going to be tough and they're going to be testing you to see if you've got what it takes to be good for the specific program you're working at. And not everybody, but a lot of people will. So you have to create a rapport and a relationship with these people very quickly so that they understand that you're just like them. You come from a different background probably, but that you're looking to have fun. You have a family of your own, so that you have a lot more respect for each other. And typically then those people will be a lot easier to manage over time. You won't deal with as many of the issues as if somebody doesn't see you as someone they respect, and they're more likely to take things out on you.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So how do you take care of yourself? I mean, this is obviously a physically draining job to have, but also mental. You're talking all day, you're doing admin stuff. It's nonstop. How do you take care of your body, your mind, your health?
Yeah. The first thing is you have to set boundaries, and it's very difficult to do that in our business because we have to be, I'll get text. I've got some funny stories that way, but I'll get text at like 11 o'clock at night. Hey, any chance you can do a 6 a.m. tomorrow morning? I want to go out and play. Mm-hmm. You're at 11, it's 11 p.m. You're in bed. Like you're looking to rest and enjoy your evening or go to bed. And next thing you know, you got to potentially answer this member. Yep. And so you have to set boundaries for yourself as to things. You have to learn to say no in a gracious way on things that you're not willing to compromise with. I think for pros, it's got to be a certain amount of hours per week. If you're at a year-round facility, you have to cut your number of hours that you're going to do and only take so many lessons because you have to be able to manage your body and your mental. You need certain breaks. I like to work out because it gets me, when I finish work, I wish I could do it in the morning, but I like working out after work because I can take my anger out. Or take some of the energy left over from having a rough day or from being tired. It helps me kind of shake everything loose before I go home. I can't take baggage home, otherwise I'm going to have a terrible evening. So for me, the gym is a big thing. Even if I'm dead or exhausted, I like going to the gym just to do something and gets me thinking about other things and helps me cool off or helps me put my working day aside. And by the time I go home, I'm a normal person and you can have conversations, and it's really hard. It's hard when you've talked all day for like 9 hours straight to come home and carry a conversation with your significant other or want to talk when all you've been doing is literally just talking the entire time. So setting boundaries, finding your passions and not compromising on that. For me, the gym is, gym or activities are non-negotiables for me. If I can't go out, if I can't go swim, or if I can go work out, I mean, it's not possible for me to do my job correctly, especially as you age. And I think the mistake that I made as a younger pro, because I got in this business so early, is I had zero respect for myself when I was teaching as a young guy. It's like, hey, do you want to do an extra hour for me? Let's work from 7 to 8. Yeah, sure. Can you come in at 6 a.m. and string 5 rackets before you teach your 8 a.m. lesson? Yeah, sure, I'll do it. Because that back in culturally, back in my age group, that's how we got the better jobs, is you do whatever you're told and you squeeze as many. Can you work your day off today? I'm going to go home and spend, I'm not feeling great. Won't you cover for me? Yeah, sure. I'll do another 8 hours on my day off. And next thing you know, you're completely burning yourself out. Mm-hmm. So I think you have to set boundaries for yourself, and you have to stick to doing the things that you like. Don't compromise on not going to the gym if that's your thing, or not taking that bike ride, or really spending your day off doing some fun stuff. I think to me that's so key. And mentally it's the same thing. What's hard about our job is just as difficult physically as it is mental. Mm-hmm. It's the mental exhaustion is just as bad as the physical exhaustion, and that's what makes our job hard. Is you got to balance both of them. But yeah, that's my take. And you have to make enough time for yourself to be able to do the things that you like.
Yeah, and to keep yourself sane and providing good lessons too. I think, for the last, I don't know, 10, 11 years, my main job, my main time where I'm busy teaching is in the summer at these clubs in the Northeast. And I usually like to work out almost daily. And when I'm in the summer, I practically don't even work out. I'll go for a walk on the beach, or I'll go on a hike, or I'll just go meditate and just be quiet for an hour because I can't even talk to anybody. But, I do kind of change my routine a lot in the summer because my body I can't do it. After teaching all that, I can't go in the gym. Forget it. There's no way I'll find the motivation to even do that.
But everyone is, and you're not wrong. There are days. I mean, not to make it sound like I go to the gym every single day. I'd like to. In the summer, you're 100% right. Once we start, having these crazy days, I can't always do it. But it's more about what gets you to cool off and find your inner peace, so to say, so that by the time you come into work the next day, you have the same drive to do just as well as you did the day before. And that's kind of what I was explaining. The average or okay pros are not good enough at doing that. They'll give you 100% one day, and then the next day they come and the lesson is just not as good. They're not able to have the same energy. So you really have to take good care of yourself.
Yeah.
Talking about the gym, what I found crazy, you think because you're on your feet all day that you're in good shape. And a couple of years ago, I started. Yeah, it's such a, we might look okay because we're fit, and naturally because we work a lot, we're on our feet all day. But you'd be surprised how weak your legs are. Mm-hmm. I started a couple of years ago just messing around. I never work on my legs, because I'm thinking I'm on my feet all day. I'm in great shape. And I started doing some squats with a bar. And I probably was cramping after 3 sets because my legs got so weak. One of the little tips for the pros out there is I started benching a little bit more just for legs. And within a couple of weeks, I felt like I could do 7 hours on the court if I needed to and not feel anything. My issue is after, in the past, I would teach 5 hours and my legs start feeling the pulls in my lower back and my hamstrings. And then it makes it hard for me to teach well because I'm hurt and I'm in pain.
Yeah.
And so my advice is what worked for me really well is getting to the gym and actually working on your legs. Most guys want to work on their chest, on their arms, their abs, whatever the case may be. But what I found it makes such a difference because then I felt so sharp on the court. I didn't feel any pain the whole day.
Oh, wow.
And I wish I did that. I do it once a week, but I wish I did it more so that you feel it actually helps in the fatigue section.
I've struggled a lot with getting a good program, doing weights or anything like that, because I cannot, it's not that I can't, I have such a miserable time teaching tennis if I'm sore. It's like you want to provide a good lesson, and if you're just tired and slacking and you can't bend, it shows, right? So you don't want to do that. You don't want to go too hard. But it's so funny what you said, because last summer, I was on court a lot and I stopped doing any physical activity, I think for a month. And, I was skinnier than ever. So I was like, I'm fine. I don't need to work out. But one day I was like, I'm going to do yoga because I hadn't even done yoga and I love yoga. So I did yoga, and literally the next day I was sore and I was like, I am so pathetic. I am sore from yoga.
Yeah, yeah.
So I know what you mean.
Yeah, I mean it's so good for you. And invest. Also, I invested in a couple things. I invested in a what is that called? A Theragun.
Yeah.
One of those massage guns. And
Mhm.
literally you'll see me in the morning, like 15 minutes before first lesson, like literally just like loosening up all the muscles. And it helps you last a couple extra hours. I'll do it at night when I get home. And that was probably the best, whatever. They're pretty expensive. But actually you can find some that are cheaper now. But it was probably the best purchase I ever made because now I get, even if I don't have time to stretch, I can at least use the gun and I really feel pretty sharp for a few hours. That would
Yeah.
be my recommendation. If you're doing a lot of hours, get one of those because they make all the difference.
Yeah, I have the mini. So I have the
Yeah.
mini Theragun, and then I just actually bought and the same company that does the Theragun, they also sell this, but I didn't buy it from that company. I bought it from a different company. It's like these, what's it called? Stim pads.
Yeah, yeah,
Do therapy for pain, or you can do a different type of therapy that actually stimulates your muscles. And I do it for my shoulder, and it helps a lot because
yeah,
I'm so
yeah,
sick of doing the band exercises. I can't.
yeah,
Ugh, so sick of it. And this like really really helps.
yeah.
So that's something that I just bought that I think really is going to make a difference for me.
Yeah, I think those are great purchases, and it makes such a difference. Again, like younger pros who don't have the pains and aches make the mistake of not taking care of their bodies, and you get to my age where you're starting to really like feel it more, and then you end up regretting not having the preparation. I mean, it's a full-time job. We have to treat it as such. It's like any other industry. The more prepared you are, the more likely you are to succeed. And for us, being fit and being not having any pains and aches makes such a difference in how your day is going to go. I mean, if I'm teaching in pain, I may not show it, but I'm not having fun at all on the court.
Yeah.
It's not enjoyable for me to teach if my legs are hurting and I'm cramping half of the time. It makes such a difference. And the member may see that if you're really having a bad day or if you're really not feeling great. Now all of a sudden you're giving not a great experience to your members.
Yeah. Or they see it in your face, or whatever it is. But I just have a few more questions for you. I tend to ask these, at the end, is basically what's the grand slam moment of your tennis life and the double bagel moment of your tennis life. It can be teaching or it can be playing, whatever you want to talk about, but the best and the worst moment of your tennis life.
As in my teaching career.
Either one. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, probably, like for me, maybe the best moment was getting my first director's job at 26. It was like, I'd been grinding for already like 9 years, maybe just teaching a ton.
Yeah.
And when you get that director's moment, it doesn't mean that life gets easier. It doesn't, but it's just, you're competing against a lot of great candidates for these jobs.
Yeah.
So I remember being so happy because it's such a grind to be an assistant pro and you're doing so much work, and now having the ability to be financially rewarded and being rewarded with a really nice title. That was kind of the way to get in. And getting it at an early age is difficult because
That's
most
very
people,
early. 26.
yeah, that was super early, and it's difficult because at that age, and I look, at least at the time, I looked super young. I probably looked like I was like 19. It's very hard for people to want to hire someone that looks really young because then you equate that with lack of experience.
Mm-hmm.
So that was a really big deal, and I got very lucky too because I was hitting at the club that I was at. I was hitting with Ivan Lendo a lot. He was a member of the club, and we became very close friends. And completely out of the blue, the person that was hiring me for this director's job knew Ivan very well, and he was listed on one of my references, and so that probably sealed the deal for me to get that job because they probably called Ivan and he gave a good recommendation. So you have the hard thing about our business is you have to get lucky. It's sadly for directors jobs for the most part it's about who you know. It's not always the best candidate that takes the job. I'd like to think I was the best candidate, but I'm sure there were people that probably had more experience and better background. So
Yeah.
it was that's why I got it because it was such a relief to fight so hard and to get a director's job. You can breathe now. You made it. If you do a good job, opportunities will come. It's kind of like these tennis pros in the non-Federer, Djokovic, and Nadal area getting their first Grand Slam is, Dominic Thiem is a great example. We can't play tennis anymore, one, because he was injured, but when you won that Grand Slam during that era, you didn't expect to win it. And so that was such a big move because at the time, there was only 3 guys that were winning Grand Slams. So that was it. Worst moment, I don't know if there's such a worst moment. I mean, I've definitely been double bagel one time. Man, talking about double bagel, I've been double bagel in paddle one time, and that was probably my worst moment in terms of playing career. I've been double bagel once, and I couldn't believe it was possible. That for a couple of nights, almost considered quitting. When I was younger, I was just starting out. I thought I was really good, and I guess I really wasn't. But maybe the one thing that's tougher for me is what's been tough maybe is the politics that go on at clubs.
Yeah.
There's so much politics. And as you get older, it's harder to manage the politics that go on. Not so much like places like the Boathouse because it's a summer club. People are there. It's more like a resort. People are there to have fun. It's their secondary club, a secondary home, so they're way more relaxed. But the year-round jobs are really hard to deal with the politics when you're dealing with, people that expect to play in certain lines during the matches when they really belong like 4 lines below.
Oh, yeah.
That's it. That's probably what drives me mad the most.
Those different dynamics. It's also quite interesting, at member-owned clubs. A lot of these really great clubs, a lot of times are member-owned. And I've heard of so many cases where a pro's been there for a while and they've done such an amazing job. Everybody loves them. And then maybe like one member has something against them and they end up losing their job. And it's like, crazy that you can lose your job for one person not liking you. Maybe now they're on the board and boom, you're out. It's nuts. Yeah.
And that's unfortunately the nature of our business. That's why you have to be really sharp because it doesn't take much if you upset the wrong member with the wrong connections, that could be the end of your career fairly quickly or the end of that job. Yeah. You couldn't have said something more true. And that's why I think, again, it goes back to, you have to really create a fun vibe so that even maybe the people that don't like you as much as others really are still liking the program enough that they won't speak against you. Yeah, it's difficult for sure.
Yeah. What do you think is the most exciting thing in tennis right now? In anything?
In general, Carlos Alcaraz and Iga Swiatek. I mean, those guys are...
Yes, those are my favorite.
Yeah, they're incredible. I mean, Carlitos there's also a lot of good guys coming up, but he reminds me of a little bit of Federer, in his ability of shot making, a little bit like Djokovic in his ability to be so consistent, and a little bit like Nadal in his fighting and playing from behind and playing under pressure. I mean, I didn't think we'd see somebody close to those guys, and I hope that he is that guy. He seems like he could take over tennis. He's just playing at a different level. He's such a shot maker. He's so fun to watch. I hope he doesn't get injured. He's fantastic. And on the women's side, he got 21 years old. He's already won multiple Grand Slams. She destroys everyone. The confidence, the maturity, now, these last 10 years, players mature up way later than they used to back in the 80s, 90s, early 2000s. Now, the male tennis players mature at 27. So to see Carlitos at 19 years old or 20, I think he's 19, and he I think just turned 21, to see them dominating these incredible matches at such an early age. I mean, it's incredible that they're that good. I'm amazed by you guys. She smokes everybody, and she wants it so bad. I really love that. She's great.
Yeah. And Max, how can people find you if they want to reach out to you? They have any questions? Maybe an email, or are you on social media or anything like that?
Yeah, I'm not a huge social media guy. It's on social media, which is my paddle camp. We do these paddle camps. People can reach out to me through there. That's maybe the only social media that I keep. But you can reach me by email, lepivertmax@gmail.com for any questions. And yeah, I'm always around, and I'm always here to help in the industry. I always want what's best for our incoming generation of pros and how we can make the business better. I think what you're doing is fantastic. It's such a good resource to have these podcasts and to help kind of the people that are looking for this business and to see it as a legitimate business and not just as a side gig to make some money until something else, something better comes along. There's really a way to make this a good job, but you're right. We need some parameters, and we need people like you to kind of help and getting more knowledge out there.
Thank you. Thank you for saying that. And thank you for talking with me today. I really enjoyed our conversation. I think we covered some really good topics today. So thank you so much. I know you're super busy, so thank you for taking the time.
Yeah, that was fun. Thank you so much for having me.
Of course. Thank you, Max. Take care. Thank you all for listening to Vida Tennis. I hope you enjoyed my conversation with Max as much as I did. I really appreciate how honest and candid he was with our conversation. I am sure some of you out there can relate to some of the things we mentioned. If you're enjoying this podcast, please leave me a review, rate the show so others can find it. You also may want to subscribe so you get notified when new episodes come out each week. You can follow Vida Tennis on Instagram. The handle is simply Vida Tennis Podcast. Or email me at vidatennispodcast@gmail.com. Until next time.